Hey, beauties! Welcome to a Sacred Space podcast. I'm Katie, your host, and I am so excited to share with you how to create sacred space in order to heal and empower yourself. I want you to know that it is possible to live your dream life, to create amazing relationships, to experience joy daily, to be fully connected to yourself and passionate about life. No matter where you're at right now, it is possible to heal your trauma, your anxiety, and live a life beyond your wildest dreams. In this podcast, I will share with you the tools and resources I've used in order to create my dream life. And if it's possible for me, I know it is for you too. So let's get started. Today, I am here with Stasea Buettner, and she is the owner of Stasea Buettner Coaching. She's all about overcoming emotional eating, and she is awesome, and I'm really excited to talk with her today. So, Stasea, why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about you and your journey and your coaching company and all of that.
Hi, everyone. So, little about me. I'm a mom to two little girls who basically run my life. I am a military spouse, and that's kind of how I got into coaching in the online space because we move so much. So finding something that could move with me instead of constantly having to quit jobs or just not work, because if I'd have to go outside of the home, then it's basically working to pay for my kids to go to daycare, which doesn't really make sense if I can just stay home. But I got into helping women with their emotional eating because I was an emotional eater, and I learned through a lot of trial and error, like how to get over it and get through it and how to heal it. But it's definitely something that I believe is taught to you from a young age. Like, I think that our parents teach it to us unintentionally, of course, but it does happen. But we do need to find ways to get through it and heal it so we aren't constantly having a fight with our food or a fight with our body and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. That's awesome. And of course, like, experience is our best teacher, right? So that's awesome. Wonderful. Well, we'll just go ahead and get started. I know today that you wanted to talk about overcoming like a major trauma that happened to you in your childhood. And so why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about that and how you overcame that and how like what your process for healing was.
So when I was 9, I was sexually molested by my stepfather, and that went on until I was 11. And I also witnessed him murder someone in front of me. So I was a terrified young girl who was having issues with the fact that her stepfather was going after her, and I was confused. So basically, like, I turned to food hoping that maybe I could disgust him.
Like as a way of protecting yourself.
Yeah. And like I had stated earlier, like, my mom taught me that whenever I'm feeling a certain way or I feel bad or really any type of emotion, to basically eat. So celebrating, eat. Sad, eat.
Mm-hmm.
Mad, eat. But I ended up turning to food, and I gained a lot of weight. And it was not healthy whatsoever. After gaining so much weight, my mom finally found out what was happening, because she woke me up in the middle of the night one night, and I basically curled up into a fetal position. But when we went to the police, they didn't believe me, and they gave me someone who looked exactly like him, which was not good.
No.
I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to be in the same room with the person. It was just all in all not good. Like, they should have given me a woman, and they didn't. Like, that's basic protocol. If it's a child, typically you give them a woman. If it's a child who's a girl, you definitely should give them a woman.
Yeah.
However, they gave me a man who looked so similar, it was creepy. So I didn't really trust the police at that point. It actually is what made me want to join the police department, because I wanted to make a difference for like young women who could possibly be going through something similar. But because I turned to food and because I gained so much weight, when I hit high school years, I think it was my sophomore year, I had a really hard issue with the fact that I had gained so much weight and I looked a certain way that I basically went on the other spectrum, and I like stopped eating. I was barely eating. I was barely getting any nutrition, drinking a crap ton of water, and just not being healthy whatsoever. And it kind of went up and down. So I'd go between binge eating and eating everything in my sight to barely eating. Kind of kept that way until I was 19, and I went to live with my brother so I could lose weight the healthy way and join the military. He taught me how to eat, so I'm fueling myself but not starving myself, which I think is really important, because a lot of diets nowadays basically tell you that you're starving yourself.
Right.
Like 1,200 calories is not enough to sustain you. So I learned how to do it the proper way and went to the military, got injured, got a medical discharge, turned back to food because I basically lost my identity, which was really hard to come to grips to for a while, because it wasn't my fault. It wasn't like I did something to injure myself.
Right.
It was someone else who injured me. But I got married, and me and my husband have been together now almost 9 years. And through the years, like, we had initially started to try and get pregnant, and I realized, hey, I really need to have a healthier relationship with food. Otherwise, I'm going to balloon up and I'm going to absolutely hate my body. So I started researching like how to eat properly, how to journal, and basically how to get through everything I've dealt with instead of trying to hide from it. And once I really started looking into it, like, I had my days where it was just like I was shut down. I didn't want to talk to anyone. But learning to journal, I think, is a really good thing to learn.
Yeah, it's essential, I think, in the healing process. That's like one of my go-to things,
Yeah.
especially with shame, because shame is such a huge thing. And when you experience any kind of like trauma as a child, or especially around sexuality and that sort of thing, it's immediate shame. That's like immediately what you feel. And that's such a huge emotion to try to confront and embrace. And journaling is the only way that I'm able to face my shame and understand what it's trying to tell me. So I agree. That's like huge.
Yeah. And learning learning what was going through my head, I think was really helpful too, because I didn't realize how much I would ignore until I started to journal, or just bottle up and shove.
Right.
So learning how to deal with my emotions, basically, and how to walk through them instead of letting them dictate my actions was huge. And I also found out that I had PCOS, and I was told that I couldn't have kids. As I was saying, learning to deal with my emotions, and then I would start to actively think when I was eating, like, am I eating because I'm feeling a certain way? Or am I eating to fuel my body and to get nutrition? And I'd go back and forth on, why am I putting this food into my body? And that also went back to journaling, because it would basically be like a journal in my head, kind of. And I think those are the two big things that really helped me, because I had to keep on top of what I was feeling and actually think about it instead of mindlessly eating, basically.
Right. Like being mindful and asking yourself the right questions, like, why am I doing this, and where's my thought process at in this? Yeah. Because so often, like, what we end up doing, it does become like a mindless thing, because we're often run by our subconscious thoughts and feelings. And so often what we end up doing is it's like this automatic, especially when we grow up that way, it's this automatic reaction of just numb and avoid. So whatever you can do to numb the pain or avoid the pain, you're doing that sort of like on autopilot, right? Like you're not, and that's where mindset comes in, and being really mindful of like, okay, how am I feeling right now? And what is my thought process right now around this? And a lot of times we don't know what our thoughts are, because we have so many, all the time, but our feelings will always tell us. And that's why it's so important to really look at our emotions and really address how we're feeling in the moment and honor that, because that's going to let us know where our thought process is, where our mindset is at, and if we're running on autopilot, or if we're being mindful about what we're doing, rather than numbing and avoiding and pushing down those emotions. So yeah, that's absolutely key. That's awesome. So besides like the mindfulness and the journaling, is there anything else that you've done to really like work through those emotions and work through the pain that you've experienced?
Talking to others.
Connection.
I have done, is it psychiatry? I've gone and seen a psychiatrist. I've done that off and on since I was very young. But I know talking through it with someone that I trusted was really key in getting through it. Instead of it just being me and bottling it up. And even if I'm journaling on it, it's still kind of bottling it up, because I'm not getting it out in the open.
Right. Like it's something secretive, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I find that's important too, because I feel like without connection, we, of course we have to build that connection within ourselves, but we have to also express that connection. And that's why it's so important, like what you're doing and what I do. I really believe in like coaching, because I feel like that's, if you get the right coach, that's a safe space for you to be able to express yourself and have that connection with somebody that you can trust and bounce your your thoughts and feelings off of, you know what I mean? And have that contained space for that. Really important.
Yeah. Exactly.
And go ahead. I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted you. Finish what you were saying.
Honestly, I don't remember what else I was going to say.
Sorry.
I have mom brain still.
I always have mom brain. I had my daughter almost 8 years ago. It's like, it's still happening. I don't think that goes away, right?
No.
I'm not expecting it to anytime soon, though. I'll tell you that. I gave up on that.
I can hope.
Yeah, one can hope. I have no hope for it at all. I'm like, this is the new me for sure. Okay, well then let's just go to because I know you kind of touched on this, but I know this was one of the topics that you really wanted to discuss. So there was like there was a whole stigma for you like coming forward about your sexual abuse and what you experienced. So like what did that look like for you and all of that?
So my mother and brother believed me. Everyone else in my family thought I was lying to get attention.
Mm.
So basically it was like this huge elephant in the room that I couldn't talk about with other family members because they wouldn't believe me.
Mm-hmm.
I know to this day I still have family members that don't believe that it happened, but at this point I'm like, I don't care what you think. I know it happened. The people who really matter know what happened. I've gone through it. It's done.
Well, and thank God you had the support of your mom and your brother in that, because that was probably key to your healing and moving forward in that from that place.
I would say yes, but there was also some drawbacks because my mom had a tendency from then on to latch and be very overbearing.
Like really overprotective on you and
yes.
Yeah.
And to the point where like she wanted to basically control me.
Mm-hmm.
Like even after I turned 18, she wanted to control everything I did, which was very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Like even after I got married, she would do these things where she's like trying to get me to do exactly what she wants me to do, and I'm like, no, we need to stop. We need boundaries here. I'm an adult. I'm married. This needs to stop.
Yeah, and normal reaction though, you know what I'm saying? Because like honestly, like, and you're a mom, you get it. Like if it was your kid, like, yeah, that's how I would act. I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm already kind of like that as it is. I'm like all over my baby, but like if something like that happened to her, like, A, I would feel so guilty. You know what I mean? I would feel like it was my fault. I would blame myself every second of every day. And then B, I would just be like, on my baby, like, what are you doing, where are you going, like, you know what I mean, who are you seeing, like freaking out, you know what I mean? So like, so to some degree, like, yeah, that had to be really hard for you, and I get that because I grew up in like a really controlling environment too, so I understand like how that feels. But once I became a parent, I realized like, oh my gosh, like, you know, your child is like everything, and there's just this normal tendency to want to just, you know, protect them from everything. And it's not saying that it's right or that it produces any kind of healthy relationship, but it's this automatic tendency, you know what I mean? Yeah. So all right. So then let's talk about like, so what are some of the tools that you use like with your clients, like with emotional eating? Because I know that probably a lot of them, you know, have suffered from trauma and that sort of thing. And then that's why they are emotionally eating, because that's usually the root cause, right? Like we experience trauma and then we turn to these things to help us deal with the trauma. Whether it's healthy or not is really not the debate. That's just kind of our natural tendency. So what are some of the tools that you use to help help them, you know, overcome this this emotional?
So I definitely have them journal. Like journaling is one of the key components.
Right.
Depending on what they've been through and like what their past brings up when we're going through, like what could be the trigger, what's causing it. I could suggest for them to also see a psychiatrist because I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't like actively work you through the actual trauma. I can work through like a lot of the emotions that have happened after the trauma, but I can't work through the actual trauma. So I think if it's bad enough that then I would definitely suggest them seeing a psychiatrist as well as talking to me, because having someone on the outside who isn't someone that you necessarily see every day is really helpful when you can just get out everything you're feeling. Like if you're just having a bad day, if your kids are driving you up the wall, if your husband's not listening to you, what have you. I completely get it. I mean, I have 2 very young children who drive me crazy. But I definitely say the main one is journaling, and then keeping a food calendar or a food journal, like everything they be in. And if they feel like they're eating because of a certain way, then if they could write down next to what they ate and why they ate it, that's a great way to recognize what's happening.
Right.
And then I definitely give them access to me like on Messenger, because like I said, if they're having like a really bad day, it gives them someone they can reach out to who isn't going to like judge them.
Right.
Honestly, those are the main tools that I use.
I love
those
that.
work so well.
Yeah, I love the food journal idea, like especially writing down like what you were feeling when you ate a particular food, because that could show you like the association you make with a particular emotion and a kind of food, right?
Yeah.
So that's really like eye-opening and like a great way to like keep awareness at the forefront of like what you're doing and what you're going through. That's really cool. That's awesome. So, do you have anything else that you want to talk about or add? I think we covered all the topics.
I think we covered everything. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you came on here, Stacey. I think it's amazing. I love your story, and I think that it's just wonderful that you know, that you can come from such a compassionate and understanding place to help somebody, you know, help people with something that is very sensitive. You know what I mean? Like it's something that a lot of people really hide from, and like this is something like we all have our thing that we kind of do like behind closed doors that we feel, you know, like shame about, or that we feel stuck, like where we don't have somebody who's got our back that can help us move through it. And like what you're doing is so amazing, because you come from this place of really understanding that, and you can help people move through that so they don't have to like feel like they're alone. You know what I mean? Like I think that is such a beautiful thing. So I'm really happy that I had you on here. Why don't you go ahead and just tell my audience like where they can find you, your website, social media, all that stuff.
So I do have a free Facebook group. It's Heal Emotional Eating and Feel Empowered Again. So if you want, you can just hop on there and get any of the free trainings I offer, or get a little access to me through there. I do have an Instagram account. It's at Stasea Buettner Coaching. Don't currently have a website, but I'm working on that.
Yeah, and I'll put all the links for everybody underneath this video, or if you're listening to it in the podcast, it'll be on the show notes. so that you all can find Stasea and follow her on Instagram and read her amazing content and join her group.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stasea. I hope you have an awesome day, and thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
For free resources, ebooks, and other super awesome tools, go to my website, sacredspacewithkatie.com. I also want to remind you to subscribe so you always get the latest episode, and to leave a review so other people can find this podcast too. I super appreciate you tuning in today, and I will catch you in the next episode. Have a beautiful day.